Have you ever witnessed a moment of such quiet cruelty that it changed the very air around you? This is one of those stories. Stick with me, because before this ends, you will question everything you know about power, prejudice, and the quiet strength of a mother. And if you're moved by stories of real human courage, don't forget to comment below where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another powerful story like this. The Morning Grind Cafe was more than just a coffee shop. It was a sanctuary. For Eleanor, a 67-year-old retired school teacher, its worn velvet armchairs and the gentle, constant hiss of the espresso machine were a backdrop to her peaceful Tuesdays. She would always arrive at 10 a.m. sharp, order a single black coffee with 1 sugar, and settle into the corner nook by the window, the one with the perfect view of the old oak tree on the square. That Tuesday was no different. The sun streamed through the glass, catching the gentle silver threads in her braided hair. She opened her well-loved copy of Maya Angelou's poetry, her movements slow and deliberate, a small, contented smile playing on her lips. The world outside, with all its noise and hurry, felt a million miles away. This was her sacred hour, a time for reflection and quiet joy. The bell above the door jingled, but Eleanor didn't look up. She was lost in the rhythm of the words, her spirit calm, completely unaware that her sanctuary was about to be brutally and deliberately shattered by the man now standing over her. The moan was Officer Dan Miller. His uniform was crisp, but his energy was chaotic. He didn't walk through the cafe. He dominated it. His eyes, cold and scanning, swept the room and landed on Eleanor's chair with a sense of entitlement. It was, he had decided long ago, the best seat in the house. He strode over, his heavy boots thudding on the wooden floor, a sound that made several other customers instinctively look down at their laps. "You're in my spot," he stated, his voice a low rumble that brooked no argument. The air in the cafe grew still, the friendly chatter dying instantly. Eleanor looked up, her gentle brown eyes blinking slowly, not in fear, but in mild confusion. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft as worn velvet. "I've been sitting here every Tuesday for years." Officer Miller's lip curled into a faint, condescending smirk. He placed his hands on his utility belt, puffing out his chest. "Well, today's different. I'm on my break, and I need this table. So, move along." A deep flush of humiliation crept up Eleanor's neck, but her voice remained steady. "I was here first, officer. I'd like to finish my coffee." For a long, tense moment, they simply looked at each other, her gaze filled with a plea for basic decency, his with simmering impatience and a toxic sense of authority. He leaned in close, so close she could smell the stale coffee on his breath. "Let me make this simple for you," he whispered, the words venomous. "You don't get to say no to me." And then, in a motion so shockingly cruel it seemed to happen in slow motion, Dan Miller let out a short, harsh laugh. "You need a lesson in respect." He leaned in, his eyes burning with contempt. Then he did the unthinkable. He didn't just pour the coffee on her book. He lifted the mug high and appended it directly over her head. A steady, deliberate stream of dark, scalding liquid cascaded down, first soaking her silver braids, streaming in dark rivulets down her temples and cheeks, before dripping on the open pages of her book and pooling, hot and shameful, in her lap. It was a crown of humiliation. Eleanor flinched, her eyes squeezing shut. She did not scream. She sat there, enveloped in the heat and the smell, her dignity drowning in the public square. He didn't throw it. He poured it. A steady, deliberate stream of dark, scalding liquid cascaded directly on the open pages of her book, then pooled onto her lap. The gasp that echoed through the cafe didn't come from Eleanor. It came from a young mother at the next table, her hand flying to her mouth. Eleanor did not cry out. She did not jump up. A lifetime of weathering such small, calculated humiliations had built a fortress of silence within her. She simply closed her eyes, her shoulders slumping slightly as the hot coffee soaked through her clothes and burned her skin. When she opened her eyes, they were glistening, not with tears of pain, but with something far more profound, a deep, soul-weary disappointment. She looked at Dan Miller not with hatred, but with pity that unnerved him more than any scream ever could. From a corner booth, a university student named Liam watched, his phone discreetly recording from where it was propped against a sugar jar. He had been capturing the beautiful morning light for a photography project, but now his lens was fixed on the scene of quiet horror unfolding before him. His heart hammered against his ribs. He saw the officer's smug arrogance, the way the other customers averted their eyes, paralyzed by fear or indecision. But his camera also saw what Dan Miller was too blind to notice. As Eleanor sat there, dignified in her suffering, Liam's phone panned slightly. Just over her shoulder, on the cafe's community bulletin board, was a collection of local news. Among notices for yoga classes and lost dogs was a glossy, framed front-page article from the Ridgefield Gazette. The headline was bold, "From Local Boy to Community Leader, Marcus Thorne takes helm as police chief." And right beside the headline was a photo of a proud, beaming Eleanor, standing arm in arm with her son in his crisp new chief's uniform. Dan Miller let out a short, harsh laugh, completely misreading Eleanor's silence as surrender. "What's the matter? Got your tongue? You gonna go cry to your son now? Tell him a cop put you in your place." Eleanor slowly, painfully, stood up. The soap book dripped onto the floor. She looked him dead in the eye, her voice a low, trembling whisper that carried in a dead silence. "I won't need to call him," she said, her words laced with terrifying certainty. "But you will be hearing from him very, very soon." She then turned and walked out, leaving a trail of coffee drops and a room full of stunned silence behind her. Liam stopped recording, his hands shaking. Back in his dorm room, Liam's hands trembled as he edited the video. He made sure to include a clear, sharp zoom on the community board and the article about Chief Thorne. He didn't need to add dramatic music or text. The raw footage was more powerful than any embellishment. He uploaded it with the simple caption, "This is what happened at the morning grind today. Hashtag I stand with Eleanor." He hit post, and the digital inferno began. The video didn't just spread, it exploded. It was shared by community groups, outraged citizens, and local activists. Within an hour, the hashtag was trending. By the second hour, news stations had picked it up, their anchors' voices heavy with disbelief as they reported. A local woman was allegedly assaulted by an on-duty officer in a shocking act of cruelty, and sources indicate the victim is closely related to a high-ranking official within the very same police department. The Ridgefield Police Department's social media pages were flooded. Comments poured in by the thousands, expressions of support for Eleanor and demands for immediate justice. The official department account, which usually posted community safety tips, went completely silent. That silence was louder than any statement. It was the sound of an institution holding its breath, bracing for coming storm. Meanwhile, Officer Dan Miller, oblivious and arrogant, finished his shift, convinced the whole thing would be swept under the rug as it always had been before. The next morning, Dan Miller swaggered into the police headquarters, a smirk playing on his lips as he noticed the hushed tones and averted glances from his colleagues. He assumed it was just gossip. His superior, Sergeant Evans, met him at the door, his face a stony mask. "The chief wants to see you. Now." Dan's smirk faltered for just a second, but he puffed out his chest. "What for? That old woman? It's a misunderstanding." Sergeant Evans didn't reply, simply gesturing toward the chief's office. Dan walked in, his confidence already beginning to crack under the weight of the oppressive silence. Chief Marcus Thorne was standing by his large window, his back to the door, looking out over the city he had sworn to protect and serve. On his immaculate desk, positioned squarely in the center, was a ruined, coffee-stained, and warped book of poetry. "Do you recognize this, Officer Miller?" Chief Thorne's voice was quiet, but it seemed to vibrate through the very room. Dan's blood ran cold. He stammered, "Sir, I can explain. She was being difficult. She refused a lawful order." Chief Thorne turned around. His eyes, the same gentle brown as his mother's, were now chips of flint. There was no rage in his face, only a profound, chilling disappointment. "The woman you assaulted for the crime of reading poetry in public, the woman you scalded and humiliated, the woman you told to learn her place," he paused, letting each word sink in like a hammer blow, "is the woman who taught me my first word, who worked 2 jobs to put me through college, who taught me that true strength is found in grace, not in brutality. She is my mother. The color drained from Dan Miller's face so completely he looked like a ghost. His knees felt weak. All his arrogance, his swagger, his misplaced sense of power evaporated in an instant, replaced by the pure, gut-wrenching terror of one who had just signed his own professional death warrant. Chief, Marcus, I didn't know, he whispered, his voice cracking. And that is the very core of your failure, Chief Thorne replied, his voice still dangerously calm. You believe your action was only wrong because of who she is, not what you did. You thought it was acceptable to treat any woman that way. That is the poison I will not allow in my department. He picked up a formal document from his desk. You are hereby suspended, effective immediately. Every arrest you've ever made, every report you've ever filed, will be reviewed by an external committee. You will face criminal charges of assault, your badge and your service weapon. Now, as Dan Miller numbly placed his badge on the desk, the symbol of the authority he had so grotesquely abused, he was no longer a powerful officer. He was just a small, shameful man. Sergeant Evans escorted him from the building, past a gauntlet of his former colleagues. None would meet his eye. There were no words of support, only looks of contempt and grim satisfaction. The blue wall of silence had crumbled, not for one of their own, but for justice. A week later, the media storm had begun to settle. On Eleanor's porch, the evening air was warm and sweet with the scent of jasmine. She sat on her porch swing, a new, identical copy of Maya Angelou's book in her hands. Next to her, her son Marcus sat, his head resting gently against hers. The weight of the world seemed to have lifted from his shoulders. "How's your leg, Mom?" he asked softly, referring to the mild burn from the coffee. "It's healing, baby," she said, patting his hand. "Just like this town is, I hope." She wasn't talking about revenge or victory. She was talking about the hundreds of messages of support, the flowers from strangers, the student, Liam, who had come to her door to apologize for not intervening physically. He thought he was pouring coffee on a nobody, she mused, looking out at the fireflies dancing in the twilight. He never understood that everybody is somebody's everything. His real punishment isn't losing his job. It's having to live the rest of his life knowing that his moment of greatest power was, in truth, his moment of ultimate weakness. So, I leave you with this. If you were in that cafe that day, would you have had the courage to speak up? Or, like Liam, to become a witness when it mattered most? Have you ever seen a single, silent moment change everything? If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, I'd be so grateful if you'd let us know where in the world you're watching from the comments below. And for more stories that challenge the heart and the mind, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time,